Hello there gorgeous gamers and welcome back to Pure Play TV, and we have our review for 35mm, or 35mm if you like. A strange little game that I've grown to really enjoy, from a developer I have come to really respect. But should you go on this post-apocalyptic journey? Well, watch on and find out. 35mm is not a game that looks great. In fact, it looks very dated here in 2022, especially running on the newest consoles. It looks like it would have been more at home in the early days of the PS3 and the Xbox 360. But don't judge a book by its cover, as they say, because you don't know what treasure you will find inside, and this game really is a bit of a treasure. It is, however, coming at a very unfortunate time. At the time of this review going live, and at the time of the game's release, Russia is waging war on Ukraine, and we're all still living in the dark coronavirus days. How is this relevant? Well, the game takes place in a post-apocalyptic Russia, in a world where humanity has been ravaged by an unknown Ebola-like virus. Now you might think that this is a cheap ploy to capitalise on these dark times, but the game originally released way back in 2016. It's just unfortunate timing for the console release. Still, it seems oddly fitting, and I think, for me at least, it kind of works in the game's favour. The story of a dark and depressing world hits harder now than it ever could have in my own lifetime. The game starts slow and steady and takes a bold decision to keep its opening 15 minutes relatively quiet, aside from a few short exchanges between your character, Petrovich, and your travelling companion. I will admit I was a little put off by the lack of context, the dated presentation, and the slow opening, but as the story progressed and my friend and I made our way across the country, I found myself engrossed with this very miserable world. It's hard to define exactly what kind of game 35mm is. It's not a true walking simulator, though the main bulk of the gameplay experience is walking around, solving simple puzzles, and exploring the narrow world around you. Some chapters are a little more open than others, with exploration and discovery being optional. Others are more straightforward, and in one case, literally on the rails, as you and your mate ride an old school motorised train along some tracks. There's combat with some bandits, but it's hardly the focus, and it's ultimately quite forgettable, and if I'm honest, really quite poor. The hand-to-hand scuffles play out as quick-time events, and they're not all that great. The animation is slow and janky, and it wasn't obvious to me that the on-screen button prompts wanted me to mash the buttons rather than just give them a one-time press, which resulted in me doing the first combat encounter several times, until, out of frustration, I hammered the buttons as they appeared on screen. The gun combat is also a bit naff, with slow and imprecise aiming, but again, it's not the focus of the game, it's just a bit part to help tell the bigger story of two dudes just trying to survive in a world gone to shit. It's atmospheric and, in a way, strangely nice to look at. The graphics are not anything to write home about, as I said, but the design with the harsh Soviet architecture, the many shades of grey, and the occasionally moving scenes are basically what I picture in my head when I think about what a post-apocalyptic Russia would look like. Thanks Hollywood. 35mm is not without its flaws then, but what is? It's still a fantastic little game that offers a mature story that's worth seeing through to the end, and one that is, sadly, more realistic than any game needs to be. I genuinely do think that humanity would go to the potty very, very quickly if things went south any quicker than the world's governments could handle, and 35mm gives a glimpse at what such a future could look like, and all framed from within one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Maybe it's about time schools started getting kids playing games like 35mm as part of their English and history lessons. I know that I would have preferred this game instead of reading and watching Of Mice and Men over and over for my final school year. Might have ended up with a better job than YouTube too. And that is the end of this review. Thank you very much for watching as always. And if you enjoyed this video and found it useful, do us a massive solid favour and give the like button a quick tap. And if you're not already subscribed, give that red button a little nudge too. It really does help our humble little channel. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.